Welcome back to iAstack. You are watching 10th part of the full stack Google Contacts clone. In the last video, we created an endpoint in the Node.js that will create uh, the contact in the database. So in this video, we will continue working on the front end and then we will utilize the Node.js endpoint to insert the contact with the UI. So this was the endpoint. You can see that if you hit the send button, if you hit the create endpoint, then it will save the data in the database. So I can also show you that how database looks like right now. So you can see we have some data available in the context table. I will delete it and then I will insert the contact once again to show you. So you can see that contacts have been deleted. Now I will hit the endpoint again and you will see that we have the success message. And if we go back to the database and reload it, you will find the newly created contact in the table. Here it is. Okay, now let's start and we will integrate the backend with the front end. That is very simple. So this is the contact editor page and if user clicks on submit button, then we should have data. For example, I type something here and if I click on the save button, then it should collect all of the information and save in a variable so that we could send it to the Node.js server and Node.js server will handle it to save in the database. You will find the input. These are the inputs. Now we need to write some code. So before doing that, we have to add some kind of identifier like maybe ID or class or something like that so that we could access these inputs from the JavaScript. So I'm going to add, for now, I'm going to add the ID. We can just give them names instead of giving them IDs, and we will wrap all of the inputs in the form. Okay. And then we will detect the form submit event and we will handle it in the JavaScript. So for that, I'm going to wrap this section inside the form tag. Maybe we just should change this one to the form. Okay, now here I will add an event on submit and I'm going to disable the on submit event on action event. So by default, it will reload the page. I don't want to reload the page if user clicks on the submit button. For that, I would add JavaScript void 0. So with that, if user clicks on the submit button, it will not reload the web page. Okay. And other than that, here I will add a function on form submit. I did not create that function yet, but I will create it now. Scroll down and in the script area, create a function on form submit and type alert and here pass event and we have to pass the event from here as well so that we could receive it in our function. Now I will alert the event to see if we are getting an event. Okay, further I will console the event to see the content of the event. All right, now I am going to provide a name attribute to every input one by one. So starting from here, I'm going to add full name and here I will add name of email and other than that this would have name phone And finally, this will have website name. All right. Now let's test it. Before doing that, we have to add type submit attribute on the submit button. So first of all, let's find that. Uh, so if you look at this, the submit button is actually outside of the form. So maybe we should move the form tag from here and move it to the parent level so that it can wrap the button as well inside of it. So because right now the submit button is in the header. So the submit button has to be inside the form tag. So I'm going to rename it again and I will make it div and I will make the content div as the form section. So this entire content element, content section will represent the form tag. Okay. So now open the header section and here find the submit button. Here you just have to add the type submit. With that, it will be behaved as a submit button, and if you click on that, then it will submit the form. So let's do that. Click on that. Nothing happened. So let's go back to the console to see some errors if there are any. I did not find any error yet. So actually, I removed the form from here, but I did not added the functions back. So I'm going to type that again. Action JavaScript void 0 and on submit on form submit here I will pass the event. Make sure that this should be exactly same, the spellings should be exactly same here, but in the form you can use any spellings for the variable, that does not matter here. So now let's click on submit. Still nothing happening. Okay, now it is working. You can see that we have the event in the alert, and if you look at the console, then you will find the event in the console as well. Let's try to understand the object. We want to access all of the values from the form. So this is the target. Inside the target, you will find all of the inputs. Now to get the data from the form, I would use form data function. So for example, first of all, I will save the form in a variable. Let form element is equal to e dot target. Okay. And with that, I will have the form element here in this variable. After that, I will create the let form data is equal to new form data. In this, I will pass the form element. This would give me access to all of the inputs. So for example, I want to see the value from the email input. I will just alert it, alert form data dot get email. Let's see if that works. Okay, in the email, I type something, I click the save button. It should be valid. I clicked on the submit button and I made a mistake. The spellings are incorrect. Okay, let's try it again. Click on the submit button and here you go. You can see the email address is being captured and it is being shown in the alert. So that is working perfectly. Now I'm going to save all of these values in an object so that we could send them to the Node.js. So let data is equal to email and this full name, that would be data dot full name, and next we need phone So let's change it to the phone, and at the end we need website. Last time I just want to see the values in the data variable. For that, I will just alert JSON dot stringify data, and let's see how it looks like before sending to the database. Okay, this is how this data looks like right now, and now we can send it to the database, to the Node.js. We will be using the fetch API that is natively available in almost every browser. So let's do that. For that, type fetch, and in the fetch, the first parameter would be the URL where you want to submit the uh, data. So, for example, my URL is the same that I added in the Postman. So I'm going to copy that. This is the URL of the backend, and this one is the endpoint in the backend in the Node.js that I made to insert the contact. Okay. After that, I need to pass an object. In the object, I have to pass some values. First of all, I want to pass the headers. In the header, I want to pass the content type, and in the content type, I will pass application slash JSON. So go back here and type the body. In the body, type JSON dot stringify and pass the data variable into the function. This will convert the JSON into the string form. So now, after that is done, I will type dot then, and here I will get the response. So whenever it will hit the Node.js with the help of this function, the Node.js will give us a response with this function. It will send us back this data. We will receive that data in the response variable. I can show you in the alert. So let's try it now. Okay, I'm going to fill the information again, and let's click on the save button. If everything is correct, if there is nothing wrong, then it will work, but I guess it will not work. The reason is that I did not specify the method, so we have to specify that it is the post method, otherwise it will use the get method. That is not correct. So now this should work perfectly fine. uh, Now let's click on the save button. I have opened the network tab here. I will click on the fetch. So here I will monitor my request that will go to the Node.js. So click on the save button. You can see that the request went to the Node.js, but we saw an error that is saying the status is cause error. So if you click on the create this endpoint, you will see that the request has been failed. There is no response from it, and it is showing in the red color. And if you go back to the console, you will see more detailed error. It is saying that this website access to fetch at this URL from the origin this has been blocked by a CORS policy. So in the Node.js, if uh, this kind of request is disabled by default because of the security reasons, so you have to enable this kind of request from the Node.js. So go back to the Node.js, and we have to install another extension, that is npm install code save. That will add the dependency here. After that is done, I will import that library that I just have installed. So I will use the let course is equal to required, and here I will type the course, and now we will pass the course function in the middleware of the Express. For that, type app.use and send the course. Okay, with that, it should allow you to submit requests from the front end to the back end. So let's try it again, and I'm going to click on the save button. Before doing that, I will clear the console, I will clear the network tab, and now let's click on the save button. This time you can see that there is no error. It is saying that we have the 200 status, and if you click on the create, you will find that we have the response that data is inserted successfully. Other than that, you can also return the actual contact that was inserted. You can get it back from the response. For that, go back to the backend project, and instead of sending this data back, I will get the recently inserted contact, and then I will send it back to the response. For that, first of all, I have to get the inserted user ID. So I don't know what is the property that we have to use to get the ID of the inserted contact. For that, I will just console the result to see the possible values inside the result property, a result variable. For that, we have to submit it again. So I will click on that. And if you come back here, you will find that we have an object in the result variable, and in that you will find the property insert ID. This is actually the ID of the contact that you just have inserted. So now I will use that information. Let contact ID is equal to result dot insert ID. And now I will write my query again, connection dot query, and in that query I will pass select all from contact, where ID is equal to, and here I will pass the contact ID. Okay, this will give me the contact that I just have inserted, and after that I will pass it another parameter that is callback function, and that will give us two variables, error and result. If there is any error, then we will get that error in the error variable. If everything is correct, then you will get the response in the result variable. So let's move that line into this query function, and I will pass the result here. So let's try it again. And if you click on the send button again, this time instead of getting this text, I should receive the JSON of with the contact information. So click on the send button and look at this. It is now sending me the JSON with the contact that we just have inserted. You can see that we have the ID 10, we have the full name, we have the phone, email, and website. Other than that, I don't like that it is sending me an array, because I'm sure that we are inserting one contact, so we should get back only one contact. So if we know that there would be only one contact, then there should not be any array, because array is used mostly when you have more than one item. So here at this stage, array does not make sense. So instead of sending as it is, I will pass the data from the zero index. In that way, it will not send the array, it will send the object. That is what I want. So let's click on the send button again. Then you will see this. Similarly, if you go back to the UI, if you click on the save button again, and you will get the alert is showing you the response, and in the here you will, in the network, you will see that we have the proper JSON coming back as the response of the endpoint. So other than that, let's console the in the front end. Let us console the response that we are actually doing alert right now. I'm replacing it with the console.log, and let's see what we have inside of that. So okay, you can see that I got the response, but it is strange. Uh, I cannot see the data that is coming. Data is in the body, but this is in a strange format that I cannot access it here. So to access the data from the response, you must have to uh, call a function. So in the response, we have a function response dot JSON, and JSON is again a promise. So you cannot get the data from the JSON. You have to type dot then to get the data from the JSON. So we have the response. I called a function JSON from the response that will give me a promise, and promise would be resolved. When promise would be resolved, then I will get this function will be called, and in this function I will get the response. Here I am using a different name so that okay. So instead of response, I will console the R, and let's see what we have here. Okay, click on the save button and wait. After some time, if there is nothing wrong, you will see the exact data that is coming from there. There's a short way of doing that. Just copy that and delete all this, and instead of that, just return the JSON. And after that, you can add the then after that. So you can add another then here. So this is more neat and clean way to getting the response. Let's try it once again. All right. So this is how you can insert data with the help of front end and the Node.js. Next, after contact is created, instead of showing an alert, we should simply redirect that user back to the contacts page. For example, I will show you again. So you can see that we are showing an alert. Instead of that, I want to redirect user back to the main context page. So for that, I would just use window.location, and this would redirect user back to the root path of the URL. And we are not specifying the index.html. The reason is that if you don't mention anything in the URL, then it would by default pick the index.html file. So you don't have to specify. That is not compulsory. It would automatically use that. So let's try that again. I am going to reload it, and here click on the save button, and you can see that it has redirected me back to the main context page. Next step is that here we are showing the dummy data. We have to replace it with the dynamic logic so that it could hit the Node.js endpoint to get all of this data. Now we have the Node.js and MySQL functional, so we can just start doing that. So let's begin. Open the index.html. Here you can see that we have the uh, array with the hard-coded data. I'm going to replace it with the empty array. And with that, you will see that it has gone. The UI is showing the empty layout because there is no data. After that, I'm just going to hit another function that would be load contacts. And obviously, I have to define that function because that does not exist before. And here we will call the endpoint through the fetch method that we used in the contact editor. Okay, so it would be almost same, but in this time we don't need to use the post method. And but if you don't mention the method in your fetch function, then it would use the get method by default, and that's what we want. We want to use we want to hit the Node.js endpoint with the get method. So let's do that. For that, I'm going to copy paste the base URL that of the Node.js server that I want to use it here again. And in the Node.js, I want to hit an endpoint that is contact. So it with this method, it would hit the contact endpoint with the get method, and uh, obviously after shortly we will create this endpoint in the Node.js as well, because this endpoint does not exist yet. So before doing that, let's complete this function. So in the last time we used dot then method to resolve the promise, but this time we will not use that. I will show you another technique that is much better than before, because this technique is shorter and convenient for you to use and easy to use. So as you know that when you call this function gives us a promise that you normally resolve like this. But if you don't want that, you can use a wait keyword. For that, you have to add async keyword in the start of your function, and here you should use a wait. With that, it would resolve the promise by itself, and whatever is the data coming inside this variable would be given to you as the response of the await that you can then save in another variable that you will define here. For example, I want to save that response in here. So this thing is equal to this thing. Okay, so this response is being saved in this variable. It can be, don't worry about the name. The name can be anything, but it would receive the response that we were receiving last time here. So we have saved that response in other variable. Now, this response, we cannot properly use this response. We have to get the meaningful data in the JSON format. For that, you have to call another function that is available in this response. So let's get the data by calling the response.json function. Again, JSON function again gives you a promise that you have to resolve. So we can resolve it again in the same way that we did before by using the wait keyword. So this has resolved the promise and gave us the proper pure JSON. Now, I just want to make sure that the data, what kind of structure we are getting from the Node.js. So I would, before using this data, I would just alert this data. So you know that to see the data in the alert, you have to stringify that JSON so that you can see in the string format in the alert. So let's see that. After that, right now it would not work. The reason is that we did not create any endpoint yet. Now let's go back to the Node.js project. And earlier, you know that we have created uh, an endpoint with a create name. Now I'm going to copy paste this again, because this time we have to create another endpoint with a different name. That would be contact, and the method would be get. Further, I don't need all of that code right now. I will add it again. So first of all, let's create our SQL query. And as we want to get a list of all of the contacts with all fields available, so without any condition, for that, I would just say select all from contacts. Then we need to call the query method on the MySQL connection, and I will just pass my SQL. And in the second parameter, I have to pass another function as the callback function. So this is my second parameter, that is a function. And whenever this function would be called, I would be given two another parameters from that function. First parameter is error, And second parameter is the result that would be from the response of the query. So if something is wrong with the query, or if something wrong happened, then result would be null or undefined, and error this variable would have the error inside of it. So I would check that thing. If there is an error, then simply return with the status code response dot status 503. You can use whatever status code you want to use. This I'm just using this code. After that, if you also want to send a JSON with the error message, then you can just use JSON. And here I would specify the property. So after that, if there is no error, then obviously this condition this line would not be executed. And here at the bottom of this condition, I will send the proper response with the result. Okay, let's see what we get in the response. I'm going back to the app and check the inspect element. Go to the network and reload the page. You will see that a request is going to the Node.js. All right, you can see that we have an error, and you can see because of error the status is 503. And if you click on this response, you will see that we have the error mentioned in the response. So this error is coming because of this line of code. Because we literally specified that please send this status and provide the error. So here it is, if you look at the error message, it is saying that no such table. That means we are using incorrect table name. If so, just to verify, you can look at the above query. The table name is contact not with S. So just remove the S and save it. And now reload the page. This time you can see the data came in without the error status, and you can see that this time status code is 200. So data is also coming. After that, we can just use that data, as now we are satisfied with the response, so we can just use it to load that data into the context variable. So context become the data variable. It will have all of the data from this variable. After this is ready, we already have a function render context. So earlier I was calling this function on load, but this time I don't need to call it at that time. I need to call it at the time when data is available. That would be available here. So after context variable is filled, I will just call the render contacts, and that would render all of the contact that are coming in. So reload it. It did not render, so something might be wrong. Let's investigate that. Go to the console. You can see that there is an error. So once again, I would alert, or maybe I should console log the contacts to see what's going on. So reload it in the console. You can see this is the data coming. So that looks correct. So let's try to understand what's wrong. So here you can see that it is saying that cannot read properties of undefined, reading join, click. So it is giving us the line number. Click on that. Okay, contact labels. All right. So here earlier we were expecting that labels is an labels where a property has an array in it, but this time I guess it is different because right now we don't have the labels yet anywhere. So we have to make our code error free. So in case we should handle this error, in case there is no label property, then it should not execute this thing. So for example, uh, here I should check if there is label property, then execute this code. So in this way you can make it optional. So it would call the join function only if labels, actually I should have added it here. It should call the join function only if there is a labels property on the contact object. Okay. So this time error will not be here. And now you can see that all of the 4 rows coming from the database and visible. If you reload the database, you will see that there are exactly 4 rows available here. So everything looks correct, but except two things, name and labels are showing undefined. So let's try to improve that. For that, let's look at the name section. Here, I'm simply using name property, but if you look at if you look at the response coming from the Node.js, we have the full name property instead of name. So you have to use the same spellings to keep it correct. Full name. Okay, you can see name has been corrected. After that, we should, as no labels was found, it did not call the join, but as it tried to print the property of whatever was returned from this expression as labels was undefined, so it just displayed the undefined. We don't want that. To avoid that, we can add a condition. For example, instead of adding question mark here, I would just say that if there are, I am going to use ternary operators, so just telling you in advance. So if labels are undefined, then use an empty string. If labels is defined, then you execute this expression. So this is short form of if condition, if else. So this is the condition. This is the code that would be executed if this condition becomes true, and if this condition becomes false, then else part would be executed. This is the else block. Okay, I hope that you understand that. All right, this time you can see that labels part is empty and there is no undefined thing. So great. So this part is also done. After that, we have to implement another function, the delete function. So you can see we have a delete icon. uh, If user clicks on the delete icon, then we should delete that specific contact only. Okay. So for that, so this is the delete contact function. If I click on the delete, something is happening. If I click on the delete, it opens the contact. That is wrong. So to fix that, I need to pass the event as well as the second parameter. So in the delete contact function, uh, I am also getting the event. So let me show you that event in the alert just to make sure that we are really getting it. So click on that. You can see that event is available in the second parameter. Now I can use that event to prevent the default behavior. So event dot prevent. Let me search for the exact spellings. HTML prevent, yeah, prevent default. So let's try that. It is still redirecting. So we should also add another function, that is stop immediate propagation. Yeah, this is. I just want to copy the spelling so that I don't mess it up. All right, let's try it again. Nope. Okay, I found the reason of the issue. I the letter D is small. That was the mistake. Also, we don't need the prevent default, so we can just remove it. We just need the stop immediate propagation. I can quickly explain this function. If you call this function, then for normally when you click on any child function, a child element, for example, this is the child element of this parent. So when you click on this child would go up to the parent, and this child will tell to this parent element that, hey parent, somebody clicked on me. And then that parent can do anything with that click event. So we are already handling that click event, that if anything is clicked inside of me, like if somebody clicks on this div, or if somebody clicks on any child element, then this parent would react because of this event that we have registered here. So in some cases, we don't want to notify parent that your child was clicked. So we can disable that behavior by using stop immediate propagation. If you call this function, then immediately whenever you click on that child, it would not deliver that event to the parent. In this way, parent will not detect that click event, and if that click event is not detected, then this function would not be executed. And if this function is not executed, then it will not redirect user to this location. So now let's test it. We have called this function. Now uh, if you click on the delete button, then it should not take you back to the contact page. You can see that it is not taking me there, but it is deleting the contact. But still, this is not a real delete. This is a fake delete, because this is just removing the contacts from the array that we have, and it is re-rendering the contact. So now we have to go to the delete selected contacts function, and here we have to call another endpoint of the Node.js to actually delete them from the server and MySQL as well. So here, or maybe at the end, wherever you want, just call another function delete, or maybe you can just call the fetch and pass the same base URL that we used earlier. Another thing, how you can see that now we are repeating something. This URL is being repeated. We have the same base URL here, and again we are going to have the same base URL here. So instead of writing it again and again, instead we should write it somewhere in a variable like this, and we should reuse it from there. Okay, and remove this endpoint. All right. After that, just remove that and reuse that base URL variable, and I will do the same thing here. So as we are going to use await function, await keyword, so because of that I have to add the async keyword before my function so that I could use the await keyword. So after that, uh, This time I have to specify the method because I want to use the method delete. For that, call the method, and here you should provide the delete method. Further, in the second, after the contact, you should add something like this contact, and here I am going to provide the ID that I want, ID of the contact that I want to delete. Okay. Actually, the way we are doing is we have the array of multiple contacts, right? Like this. So here I have the selected contact IDs that are going to be deleted. So I will just use them. So instead of passing them in the URL, I will just pass my data. So I will pass it in the same way like we did here. I will just copy paste this. I have passed the headers because I am going to pass the JSON. That's why I have mentioned in the headers that I'm sending the JSON. So in the data, so here as I need to pass an array, so just use this array and pass it here. All right. Okay. So we don't need the JSON out of it because it is just removing the data. We don't need the data from the response, so I am not using .json function after that. Now let's go back to the Node.js, and I have to define that endpoint again in the Node.js. So I'm going to copy paste this endpoint, and instead of get, I would use delete function. And instead of this SQL, I would use delete from contact where ID is equal to the ID that is coming from the. Actually, as we have multiple IDs, if you want to delete multiple contacts, then this is the right query that you can use ID in, and in the bracket, in the round bracket, you have to provide the ID like this, 2, 3, 4. So this is how you can delete multiple items from the contact. So all of these are IDs, but these IDs are should not be hard coded. These IDs should be coming from the response or from the request of the client. So if you look at that, we should have passed an object, and in that object we should have a property with the IDs, and then I have passed the selected contact. Uh, Actually, I should have used the IDs, not selected contacts. Okay. Now go back to the Node.js. Before doing anything else, I just want to print my data that is coming from the browser. So let's do that. Console.log response dot request dot body. Okay. Now I'm going here, click on the delete, and you can see that it has hit the contact endpoint with the delete method, and you can see we got the IDs in an array. Okay. So now we can carry on and we can complete our function that could delete it. So you can see we have an array. We can just use that variable, for example, here, just write that property in the same way, response dot body dot IDs, because in the body we have an object, and in the object we have the property IDs. And ID's property has an array, but we don't want to pass an array in the SQL query. We want to pass the comma separated strings of IDs. So for that, just add join comma. With that, it would convert this array in the comma separated values in the string. So I will show you again here. For example, this is the array. If I join it with the comma, uh, right now as this is only one ID, that's why you will not see the comma. But if there are multiple IDs, then you can see in the response below that it has created the string out of this array and joined all of the items with the comma. So this is how you can easily do it. All right, so our query has been created. I have called this query, and if everything is correct, then just send status 200, I guess, or whatever you prefer. Now let's test it, reload it, and if I click on delete for this entry, let's see what happens in the response. Click on the network, clear the console, and now click on the delete icon. All right, I can see a 500 error. Why is that? Let's try to understand. I'm getting an error from the Node.js that cannot read property of undefined. It is trying to read IDs of undefined property. So let's see what is that. Okay, I did a mistake. I should have used the request variable, but I was using response. That was the mistake. So let's fix it. Okay, now I will try it again. Click on the delete, and you can see I have 201 status. That's mean it was successful. Now let's go to the database to make sure that this entry was deleted. I did not reload it yet, and at this time you can see we have 4 entries. If I reload it, then it should show me 3 entries only because one entry has been deleted. Okay, you can see it has been deleted. Now let's test by deleting multiple entries. So for that, I'm selecting, actually there is still an issue. If you try to click on the checkbox, then the parent element detects that click and it immediately redirects the user back to the contact page. So we have to apply the same strategy that we did before. For that, go to the front end project and find the checkbox that we have there. Uh, yeah, this is the checkbox. Okay. Uh, Here on this checkbox, I have to call the same function. For example, on click, I want to use that event and I will call stop immediate propagation. I'm going to copy paste the same spellings that I wrote below and call it. In this way, whenever somebody clicks on this checkbox, then it will not pass that event to the parent, because if it passes that event to the parent then will redirect you to the contact single page. Actually, let's move it to the to this div. Okay, now let's try it. So you can see that this time it did not redirected me. So I have selected these two contacts. Now I will click on the delete function button and let's see if that works or not. I clicked on that and nothing wrong happened yet. If you go to the inspect in the console, there is no error. That's mean uh, there should be only one record left in the no in the MySQL. So let's verify that. Open the client MySQL client and reload it, and 2 entries should have gone. Okay, you can see that 2 entries are gone. So in this way, we have implemented single delete and multiple delete function in this app. So that's great. After that is done, if you click on the contact on this contact page, it should display the dynamic data. Right now we have hard coded the data that is being displayed here. So we have to replace it with the dynamic data. Whenever this page is opened, we should hit the Node.js endpoint, and from the Node.js we should execute an SQL query that would get the relevant data from the MySQL. So go back and let's try to understand how it is redirecting user to the contact page. This is the code that is taking user to the contact page. So on this page, it is fine, it is taking us there, but other than that, we should pass the ID as well. So one method to pass the ID in the URL is that you can use the query string variable. So add question mark and then type the name of the variable that would be ID, and after that you have to specify the contact ID. So this is the contact we have in this variable. I would just use contact.id, that would add it here. So let's test it to see if that is working. Click on that and you can see that in the URL I am getting the ID of the contact from the previous page. Just to show you the difference for different contacts, I am going to create few more contacts for you. Okay, click on the save button. Okay, we have two contacts. Let's create one more. Okay, now if you click on this one, you will see a different ID. If you click on this one, you should see a different ID. Now in the contact.html, we will get the relevant contact with the help of this ID that is coming in the URL. Okay, so let's open the contact.html. But before that, I'm going to commit my code so that you can use it while you are practicing. So completed multiple delete contacts feature. Okay. So all of this code is available in a repository that would I will always provide the repository link in the video description that you can get from there. Similarly here we implemented the two endpoints. All right. After that, let us first create an endpoint to support this page. So on this page, we need an endpoint in the Node.js where we will feed it with the contact ID and it will consume that contact ID, and in result, it will give us back the relevant contact. So let's do it. I'm going to copy paste this, and this time we have another parameter like this. So I have the parameter and I am giving that parameter the name ID. I'm giving the name to that parameter as ID, and before doing anything else, I am going to showing the log. Let's check if we are getting the ID or not here. For that, use request dot body or params, and let's see what we are getting in the parameters. So this is the URL. Type the slash contact Whenever you hit an endpoint from the browser address bar, that's mean you are trying to access that endpoint by using the get method. Okay. All right. You can see that I am getting the uh, parameters in the console. That's mean we can easily access that ID. So we need to just add a where condition at the end where ID is equal to, and as we saw that we have an object in the request dot params, and that object has the ID property in it. So in this way it will give us only one contact, but every time it gives us an array. So we have to get the single contact. We don't want to return the array because we are expecting one single contact. So it should not be an array. I will show you example that we are getting an array. If you reload it, you can see that we are getting only one contact, but that one contact is inside an array. So it should not be an array. To fix that, I will just check. First of all, I will check if length of result is greater than 0. That's when we have the data. Then uh, I would return uh, response dot send. So in this way, I am sending the object from the 0 index because that is only what I need from this response. Otherwise, if there is no data, then just simply return uh, send the response with the empty array because we know that length is 0. So now let's see. Now you can see that this time it is not an array. Now our endpoint is ready to be used. Next, let's go back to the front-end project. There we will implement it and we will consume that endpoint. Go to the contact.html file, and there, first of all, I will write the script tag. In that, I will create a variable let contact, and then I will create a function load contact, and I will call that function. But there is one condition. Uh, okay, we have to load that function only when okay, so let's write the logic in this function. In this function, I will write call the fetch function. In the fetch function, I will call the HTTP localhost, and that would be the path of the backend, that is 3400. In your case, it can be different. So after that, we have the contact slash the ID, and we need to get the ID from the URL. So first of all, let's get it from the URL. Alert. I am just using alert to make sure that I'm getting it correctly. For that, window dot parameter query. Actually, let me check it from the internet. So this is the simplest form that we should use. So I'm going to copy paste this line of code and we have the parameters inside this variable. So let's make them alert and see. You can see that we have the ID available there, but I doubt that the type of this variable is string. So to check the type, just type of before that, and you can see it is telling me it is an object, so that's good. Then let's try to get the ID from it, param.id, and see if that gives us ID or not. No, it is giving me undefined. So okay, I should have used the get method to get that ID. Okay, now I have access to the ID that is coming in my URL. So we can use that ID in our fetch method. Okay, so here uh, I'm using the backticks so that I could add the inline JavaScript into this string, and I have passed the ID. As we want to run it on a get method, that's why I will not specify the method again. And further, I want to make it async function because I want to use await before that. And here I have the response. And from the response, I want to get contact by calling the response.json function. And as this is promise, I have to use await to resolve that promise. Now in the contact, we should have the data. So let's see if I am getting the right data. Alert json.stringify and contact. Let's see. All right, you can see that we are getting the contact from the ID 21. Next step is that we have to consume this data, and we have to render the UI based on this data. So for that, uh, I will call another function render layout. Okay, you can name it any other function. You can give it any other name to that function. It's up to you. So function render layout. Okay, so in this function I will pass the contact that I want to render for. Now let's start from the contact header. In the contact header we have name. So first of all, let's start from there. So I would say that document dot query selector find the ID contact header and uh, query, and further go down. Actually, you can just mention here inside contact header we have a class dot name. Uh, Pick it and replace its inner HTML with the contact dot uh, full name. Okay. Now, if you reload it, it should make that change, but it did not. Let's see the console. Yeah, we have an error. It's saying that properties often define reading full name. So let's see what's going on there. Let's reload it. And here in the response, I have ID full name. It should work. Why it is not working? Uh, Let me check again. Okay, in the alert, I am getting undefined. Okay, Contact. So actually, I used incorrect variable name, and I guess I don't need this one here. So okay, now it is working. So remove the alert and let it reload. You can see that this time the real full name has been added there. If you go back here, if you pick any other contact, that name would be visible here. Next thing is that I have to show the first letter in this circle of the full name. So that is very easy. For that, first of all, let's see the class name, that is avatar. So here, copy paste this line, and here I would say I want to capture avatar element, and I want to add the first. There is a JavaScript function. Let me try to find that. I guess this is a function that we have to call character at zero index. Yeah, this would give us the character from of the very first character. Further, I want to make it capitalize to uppercase, I guess. Yeah, that's fine. So that's what we need. So copy this one and add it here. This way we will have the letter O. So if you change and use something else, you will see H there. After that, I need to update the contact details there. So for that, let me see. Here I will give it a class or ID. Let's add it ID maybe. Website, actually not here. I need to add this part in a span because I want to replace only this part. So give it ID, website URL. Okay. Similarly, I will wrap it in a span and I will give it the ID, phone number. And same for this one, I already have anchor. I will just add the ID, email. Okay. So let's copy paste this again. And here instead of header, I would just directly mention the ID of the website URL. And I want to replace that with the URL, I guess. Let me see what we get in the network. Yeah, we have the website property. So let's just use the website. And next, I need to replace the phone number. So I'm using the phone number ID and I'm replacing the inner HTML. Oh, by the way, we don't want the first character of the website. We want the entire URL of the website. Similarly, we have to remove this one. So here, if you look at the response, the property name is phone. So use it. And at the end, we have the email. So use the email ID to select the DOM element, and in that element, I want to replace my inner HTML with the email property value. All right, you can see that the real value is there. Uh, I guess email was not replaced. Let me see what's wrong there. Oh, I did not write the correct spelling. So, okay, now it's working. If you go back and if you pick any other one, you will see that everything is dynamic except the labels. So, next, we did not implement the labels yet, so we will not make it dynamic yet. We will come back to this part when once we have the labels part implemented. Okay. So this is all for this lecture. I hope that you enjoyed this lecture. If you have any questions, please don't forget to ask them in questions. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified for my upcoming videos and episodes. So thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.